right? When you have these amazing organizations coming to your door, asking for a donation, it's really hard to say no. But at the end of the day, when you can make an investment in a venue like the Performing Arts Center and Convention Center, the whole district, and really impact a very large group of performing arts nonprofits in a very meaningful way by supporting and providing this state-of-the-art facility, your money goes a lot further.
Welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. Here, our purpose and passion are simple: to highlight the incredible nonprofits that make our communities stronger. Each episode is a chance for these organizations to tell their story in their words, sharing not just what they do, but why it matters to the people they serve, to their supporters, and to all of us who believe in the power of community. Through podcasting, we hope to amplify their voices, inspire connection, and give them one more tool to reach the hearts of donors, partners, and neighbors alike. This work is made possible through the generous support of our founding partners. CapTrust, offering fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations serving Sacramento, Roseville, and Folsom, and online at captrust.com. And Western Health Advantage, a local not-for-profit health plan that believes healthcare is more than coverage. It's about caring. From supporting the American Heart Association to making arts and wellness accessible for all, Western Health Advantage truly delivers healthcare with heart. Learn more at westernhealth.com. I'm proud to welcome our newest partner, CORE, Executive Leadership and Comprehensive Support Services, working in it so you can work on it. Visit cxore.com. This episode is the finale of our month-long tour of performing arts centers. We wrap with a story that sits right at the heart of Sacramento's cultural life. 4 years after a pandemic-era pause and a transformative renovation, the Safe Credit Union Performing Arts Center and the wider Convention and Performing Arts District has become a dynamic center for our city. From Broadway runs and ballet to community galas and even pyrotechnics training. The cast for this show also happens to be our largest group of the series. We've got 3 voices who make it all work. Sid Garcia-Heberger, Performing Arts Center and Memorial Auditorium manager, who knows every fly rail, line set, and backstage quick change. Megan Van Voorhis, director of the city's Convention and Cultural Services with a vision for access, workforce, and activation across the district. And Allison Yee-Garcia, Senior Vice President of Marketing and Communications for Safe Credit Union, whose landmark naming partnership shows what bold, community-minded investment can do at scale. We'll talk acoustics and accessibility, budgets and big ideas, and how a civic stage becomes a place where generations make memories. Sid Garcia-Heberger, Megan Van Voorhis, and Allison Yee-Garcia, welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network.
Thank you so much.
Happy to be here.
It is so fun when we have 3 people in the studio because it's not that often that we get to do it, but it really changes the dynamic of the conversation. And since we're actually going to be talking about multiple venues too, that the city represents and that the Safe Credit Union supports, it'll make that conversation even that much more complex.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm really looking forward to this. So it's been 4 years since the Safe Credit Union Performing Arts Center and the ancillary associated venues with it opened, which is so hard to believe, but it got caught up in that whole COVID thing and it just dragged for a while. And it was this going to ever happen? And you'd go downtown and you'd see the fencing and, please and when and hopefully soon. And here we are now 4 years later, and it is a thriving change, in the center of our city. Who wants to tackle a bit of the history of that Performing Arts Center?
I can tackle that. So the Safe Credit Union Performing Arts Center was originally called the Sacramento Community Center Theater. It was built in the early 70s as a more modern performing arts center to the Memorial Auditorium, which was our original civic center for performing arts and events and all kinds of things. The Memorial is unique in that it's built to serve lots of purposes. So it has a movable floor that allows us to do performing arts and music, as well as flat floor events like trade shows and food functions and sporting events. And the community was looking for something that was a little more modern and a smaller capacity that had the amenities of that era, back of house things and dressing room spaces and those sorts of things. So the community center theater was built. And at that time, things like the seating was all continental. So it was all these long, wide rows where if you came in on one side, but your seat was in the middle, you got to meet 30 people as you made your way to your seat.
God forbid you have to go to the bathroom in the middle of a performance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Always choose the aisle.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
And it was originally opened with about 2,400 seats. And, the sensibility at the time was, let's just put everybody who has mobility issues at the back of the house in the back row. And so it had some ADA challenges. It was under capacity in terms of lobby spaces. The dressing rooms needed expansion. And I have the unique perspective of, I've been in the market forever. I served on the Downtown Partnership Board, and I was good friends, an acquaintance of then Mayor Fargo, who asked me to serve on a lot of committees and working groups and those sorts of things. And so she had appointed me as her representative on the committee that was looking at renovating the community center theater. And that was in 1999. And what I didn't know at the time was that in 2019, when we closed the building for the renovation, that I would be managing the facility. So it's kind of a
that
fun.
You can still be here doing that,
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. So it was kind of a fun kind of turnabout of events. So when we renovated the building, we were addressing accessibility issues for performers as well as patrons, lobby spaces, but we wanted to keep the venue where it was in the center of downtown, near parking and near restaurants and other amenities. And then, of course, within our district, because there's a economy of scale when you have, an operation running multiple venues.
Mm-hmm.
And so those were all of the kinds of things that we addressed when we renovated and reopened as the Safe Credit Union Performing Arts Center.
And so the next logical question is the physical elements that changed with the theater. Tell us a little bit about its state-of-the-artness.
Sure. So we added an electro-acoustical shell called Constellation to address acoustical issues. We put in a new fly rail system. We added
fly rail system is?
A fly rail system, inside baseball.
Uh-huh.
A fly rail system are the ropes and pulleys that are used to bring in sets, fly out lights, fly in things.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a line set system. I think we have 15, we have more than 59 line sets.
Wow.
So we can bring in and out sets. We use them for hanging soft goods or drapery. So anyway, we put in a brand new line set. We also put in a lot more stage power, a 3-truck dock, which is, be still my beating heart. We had a 1-truck dock previously, so that was a big improvement. Our laundry facility for wardrobe is now we have our washers and our dryers on the same level. That was a huge win.
And I think many people, we don't think about that as that's an issue. You have a washers and dryers. Well, of course, you have these performances on top of performances multiple times in a night sometimes.
Yes.
Where I would imagine It's absolutely necessary.
That's right. And we have seamstresses and stitchers, and there's hand washing that has to happen for some of the more delicate pieces, and then, big laundry that happens. And, the performers are dancing, they're moving swiftly and, past each other and past set pieces. So sometimes things get torn and things need to be repaired. And all of that is happening while the show is in-house. Like looking backstage at something like a Nutcracker is just absolutely fascinating to just see, like, the costume pieces and like the rat heads and rows and rows of rat heads. And my favorite, gingerbread, oh gosh, with the giant hoop skirt.
I know it's called different things in different versions of the Nutcracker.
But we that is a giant costume piece, and so we actually take a chain motor and we hang it above everything just to get it out of the way.
And what's the seating capacity now?
The seating capacity now with the pit seated is 2,188.
Ooh, that's a lot of people.
It is a lot of people.
In a good way. And I mean that very positively, because as we've gone through the sequence of performing arts theaters, this is the largest. This is the pinnacle of the conversation, wrapping our month of theater discussions, and rightfully so, because it is the greatest centerpiece for the community. And Allison, really uniquely, it's named by a commercial entity, which I know at one point, or at that point at least, it was the largest contract for naming rights in the city ever.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's a big, big deal. Do you want to speak a little bit to that and what it means to Safe Credit Union and how it aligns with the Performing Arts Center?
Yeah, I mean, I think the credit union industry in general, and certainly SAFE specifically, is really uniquely positioned to support civic amenities like a performing arts center, a convention center, because we are chartered and we exist to serve the community. That is, we are also not for profit. And so we have, really at the heart of SAFE certainly is a mission and a purpose to be there for the people of the greater Sacramento community. And what better way to do that, to ensure that such a unique amenity and space is available for our members and for the greater community to enjoy. Mm-hmm. And so it's a really, fantastic way for us to live our mission, to serve our members, to bring value, and to ensure that the community that we serve kind of continues to thrive. I think, on a more specific note for SAFE, going back, many, many years, there has always been a dedication to the arts. And I think, I joined Safe Credit Union a few years ago, and it was really interesting for me to kind of like dive in and understand the culture of the organization and why an investment like this was so, uniquely positioned alongside our values as an organization. I come at it from the perspective of, whether you are a patron of the arts or a big supporter personally, it's really hard to imagine a thriving community without a thriving art scene, right? Whether you personally appreciate it or not, I think, we look at it as an investment in a thriving community. And, kind of all, right, what's the phrase? All rising tides lift all boats,
yes.
Right? And so for us to continue to see our members thrive and the communities thrive, we like to invest in things that will bring that kind of broad impact.
And I would imagine to some degree an exposure that they may not have had otherwise.
Yeah.
They just didn't know, and maybe they're suburban, don't realize that there's all this neat activity that takes place in the core of the city.
Yes.
Which is what we all really want to see.
Yeah.
So I applaud you for that.
Thanks.
It's a really neat way to look at it from a different perspective with an angle that supports so much in the city.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about the usage of the facility? It obviously, we know it houses plays and things of that nature, and I'll let you address the organizations because I want you to say them, but also as a community resource.
Sure. So I think everybody knows that the facility houses 5 nonprofit performing arts groups: Broadway Sacramento, the Sacramento Ballet, Sacramento Philharmonic and Opera, Sacramento Choral Society and Orchestra, and the Sacramento Speaker Series. But then infilling that usage, we have concerts, comedy shows, other kinds of lectures. Sometimes we do general sessions that are happening, that they're ancillary to maybe something that's happening at the convention center. We've also been able, with this renovation, we're able to do receptions in the lobby spaces. We did one where we did a vertical event where it started with appetizers in the L Street lobby, then a dinner in the main lobby, and then up to the donors lounge for dessert.
Oh, how neat.
And that was a really, really fun event. And it was my
idea. What great exposure to all the assets
Absolutely.
of the facility.
And and as you moved up through the venue, when you get up to the donors lounge, it's now dark outside. You can see out into the Capitol Park across the way. And so it just was pretty magical. And recently in June, we did a Michelin event, and that again was another thing where we really pressed the capabilities and the capabilities and some of the limitations of the venue. And it was a really exciting event. And I learned a lot during that process, because there were a lot of things that we just hadn't ever attempted before.
And I'm going to imagine, 4 years only in, there's a lot more that you are going to learn as you go through about its capabilities and, what stresses it, what really is exposure to it that you hadn't thought of.
Yes.
It's just going to keep coming, and probably
absolutely,
some of it from the outside in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or you just don't think of those things.
Right. Always excited when we hear from a group that wants to do something that we haven't done before, because it gives us an opportunity to kind of press our knowledge of the building. And then also it's exciting to do new things. We do a lot of things that are, annual events, and those are also wonderful because they're tradition, and we get to see, our friends in the community who enjoy those traditional events, but doing new, unique things it keeps things fresh. I've been doing this for a minute, and so being able to tackle new things like a Memorial Auditorium, we did huge for broadcast entertainment wrestling event, and it was a big boy, let me tell you.
Not to mention big boys in it.
Yes. But it was one of the most exciting events that I've done in my career.
Yeah, and certainly Memorial Auditorium is an iconic venue in the city. People refer to it. My first concert, I saw the Stones, I saw Jimi Hendrix, I saw you name it.
I graduated from high school
at Memorial
Auditorium.
Devo, December 1981.
Oh, I love it.
I do. Well, I want to speak to that, because I do think that that's one of the things that just I've heard over time, is that it's really thinking about the Memorial Auditorium as a place where people make memories. They have memories, they make memories. And for me, that I think the understanding that facility is about to turn 100 years old in 2027, and we're thinking about what that celebration looks like. But I do think that experience for folks, like families and traditions that to pass down in whatever way. There were people who became United States citizens there.
Yes.
There are people who graduated high school there that saw these shows, that competed, in dance,
absolutely,
dance competitions and huge things like that. And so I think for us, it's really important to sort of acknowledge the importance of that history as a place of memory. And as we look forward, what new memories are we making in that facility for new generations in this community?
Which is so neat to think that you have these generational memories being made from back in the day. Whether 40s, 50s, 60s, boxing matches, concerts, big band. I mean, all of that was there. and you have to contemporize it and keep the facility safe, which has been done now several times over the course of its lifetime. And to be clear, so the listeners going, wait, you're talking about Memorial Auditorium? We're talking about the Performing Arts District, basically. Mm-hmm. And so there's the Performing Arts Center, which is at the convention center, on the campus of the convention center, and that's the granddaddy. That's the big facility, but not to be sized differently, because Memorial Auditorium will hold equally as many people in some cases, right, Sid?
Yes, it will hold up to 4,000 if it's just an open floor show.
So not to be, a shrinking violet here. That's a huge facility as well, both underneath the umbrella of, the Safe Credit Union's Performing Arts District, so to speak. So we'll kind of talk back and forth about those as we go. What about community involvement, collaboration with the facilities? What does that look like?
So we used to refer to the area as the Convention Center Complex. And with the naming rights sponsorship, we rebranded everything to become the Safe Credit Union Convention and Performing Arts District. So it encompasses the convention aspect of our district and the performing arts aspect of the district. We have a common team of attendants, engineers, stagehands who work in all of the facilities. Some of us have specific disciplines related specifically to the convention center or related specifically to the performing arts center, but we still cross disciplines in some ways. For instance, we had the California
the Arts, Culture, and Creative Economy Summit.
There we go. And so that event took place at both the Memorial Auditorium and within the convention center space. And so I was the lead on coordinating the needs for that event in both the Memorial Auditorium and the convention center. It takes me a little out of my comfort zone, but again, I like doing new things because it keeps me engaged. And there's another event that we do. It's a junior theater festival. So again, going back to like bringing up the new generation of attendees and of performers. And that's another event that takes place at the Memorial Auditorium and at the convention center. And there's a convention center event supervisor who has the lead on that particular event. So they're working within the convention center, which is kind of their normal course of work, but then they're expanding out into the Memorial Auditorium because it just makes sense to have one person coordinating for them.
And how neat that they have the options.
Well, again, going back to the primary users of the Performing Arts Center, those are all community-based organizations. They all Sacramento Ballet, Sacramento,
and all nonprofit.
Yes, Philharmonic and opera. So there's a lot of collaboration between those groups and the venue, the team that operates the venue, and then of course the folks that are bringing those shows into the venue. We meet frequently. We have lots of conversations. They'll come to us with, this show has a weird one for you. And it's like, yay, we love weird ones. Broadway Sacramento, we're always joking about like right now we're doing a massive confetti drop. And so we're always joking about like wig sinks and confetti drops and pyrotechnics and and all of those things are all new challenges. Right? You don't set things on fire on a stage with 2,100 people in the room lightly. You don't take stuff like that lightly. So
how about outside of, let's say, the obvious of schools and graduations, are there other organizations that might say, hey, can we use the facility for something like maybe it's a Big Brothers Big Sisters looking for an opportunity to do something differently, or with some of the larger organizations, or smaller based on the breakouts, because you have breakouts at the Gene Running Theater at Memorial Auditorium.
Sid, we've done some things with summer camps.
Yes, that's right. We have done things with summer camps that are around the performing arts and performances, music, dance. Big Brothers Big Sisters did an event where kids were brought in to be able to see a ballet performance with an experience. And that was something that Safe spearheaded for us.
Yeah.
I was just going to go there because of your...
a really terrific event and an opportunity for families to come and experience not only the performance, but kind of VIP treatment as well. The Sacramento Philharmonic and Opera has a program called Link Up, where they bring in students, thousands of students with recorders, and they play along in the auditorium to the music that's happening on the stage. And there's a whole program within their schools where they're preparing for that experience over the course of many weeks before they come to us with the culminating event that occurs at the Performing Arts Center.
Exactly what I was looking for. And I remember Giuliano talking about that. We had him in here a few months ago, just talking about Philharmonic. Exactly.
You really haven't lived until you've experienced 2,100 children with recorders.
I can only imagine, right?
I think just what I'll add to that, aside from a lot of folks do their galas at the Memorial because it's just such a beautiful, iconic venue, both inside and outside. But some of the creative things that we've seen, I was walking out of the convention center a couple of weeks ago, and I looked to the left, and I'm like, what are all of these fire folks doing here? I'm worried, but they were doing pyrotechnics training inside the facility. And we see a lot of that kind of activity going on. And even, our partners in stagehands, IATSE Local 50, who will come in and they'll do their trainings within our facilities because of what we have to offer. And so I think even the things that are just going on behind the scenes that are making everyone safe and making the experience as dynamic as it is, we're the training ground for some of that work. And I think that's a pretty exciting role to play in community.
And that is community. That's the collaboration when that venue is available. How often is it in use? How many day use? Is there a number or is there a metric that you call it?
So at the Performing Arts Center, we're running at about 70% of capacity.
Okay.
That does include shows as well as rehearsal and load-ins. Thinking about something like a single performance of an opera, there might be 9 or 10 days of preparation in the facility before that single performance. So it's kind of anticlimactic when it's like, darn, it's over.
Right.
But that's just kind of the nature of those shows, is it takes that long to put it in, do the rehearsals, and then actually have the performance.
Yeah, the actual performance, which is the smallest part of it, probably in some cases. Everything else is the prep getting up to it.
Yes. But then you also have, big Broadway shows where we'll load the whole thing in a day and a half, and, we'll unload 13 trucks over the course of, 48 hours and bang off a show in 8 performances.
Right. Well, it's because you have a 3-truck dock now.
That's right. Best thing ever.
In terms of the actual usage, people tend to think of theaters and or these performing arts centers. Well, this is good. You've got your ticket price, and that pays for it. And I mean, nothing could be further from the truth. As we know, there's just so much more that goes into it. The ticket price is really just a very small piece of it. When it's somebody like the Philharmonic and or the ballet, and as we look at how the organization is funded, are they like a fee for service? Do they pay for the usage and then the ticket prices go to them, or does it come to the box office and then there's a distribution? Is it everyone negotiated separately?
So yes, there is a fee that the performing arts groups or any user pays to use the facility. The ticket revenue belongs to the group that's putting on the event. I think that the statistic that I've heard in the past is that ticket revenue is about 65% of a nonprofit group's budget. So there's still that 35% that has to be closed with sponsorships and other ancillary income. For our nonprofits, we are partners with them. And so we do work with them closely on controlling costs, having amenities within the venue so that they don't have to go out and purchase,
Bring
rent, etc. So that's kind of how the dollars and cents of it.
I will just add to, like, at least from a funder's perspective, another one of the reasons why investing in something like the Performing Arts Center is really interesting when you think about it from, the business or the funder angle. There's a tendency to want to support a lot of organizations with smaller donations because it's really hard to say no, right? When you have these amazing organizations coming to your door asking for a donation, it's really hard to say no. But at the end of the day, when you can make an investment in a venue like the Performing Arts Center and Convention Center, the whole district, and really impact a very large group of performing arts nonprofits in a very meaningful way by supporting and providing this state-of-the-art facility, your money goes a lot further, right? Like, you're doing some really impactful and meaningful work when you're giving money at scale in that way. So, like, I guess my PSA for funders out there is, don't be afraid to look for those big opportunities to make those big impacts, because we are just so proud to be able to impact the arts community at scale, right? And this is one of the best ways to do that.
Well, and speaking of being at scale, because we are a district, we have the benefit of the convention center, which is a large moneymaker for the community. It has a huge economic impact. And because we're all part of that same district, that gives us the opportunity to be supportive in other ways that are activating of the district, but not necessarily moneymaker.
Yes. Yeah. So I'll just add in as an example, we were just talking about this, some history programming within the Gene Runyon Little Theater. We've done some events inside of the lobby, the Performing Arts Center and up in the Donors Lounge and things like that. And so I think that's the real future opportunity for us when you look at, we are a district and we do bring a lot of people into the city core, which I think is really critical at this time and always. So I think that's really exciting and where there's enormous amount of opportunity. And we've been talking about how do we do that and how do we build the next generation of promoters and presenters and stage workers and professionals and all of that. And I think that the district really represents what could be the ground for where that happens.
And to be certain, the contribution in those naming rights also helps support and fund. Yeah, that does go into the bigger pot, so to speak, of the funding of the district.
Absolutely.
And the buildings, right? I mean, that's
right.
There's a reason.
All things are possible with money.
That's right. There are reasons for millions of dollars on the side of a building, right?
That's right.
It does do that. What is the overall budget that you work with?
Yeah, so our total departmental budget is about $31.7 million about.
You can drop the 7, round it up to 32 million.
I think about 85% of that departmental budget goes to the Safe Credit Union Convention and Performing Arts District and incorporates all of our revenues. So
Good.
Yeah, it's a big thing with hundreds of people that we employ to keep that thing moving.
I was just going to ask, how many people are employed roughly?
So in total in the department, we have 125 FTEs across, and most of those, again, serving in both full-time capacities within the Convention Performing Arts District, but also, people that just might want to be an usher and come and see a show and have that as a benefit of what they do.
Sure.
So, yeah.
In terms of volunteers, do you have volunteers at the center, or is it that sticks with the actual nonprofit itself that is...
Right. We work with a lot of volunteers, but those volunteers are volunteering for the organizations that are using our spaces. And that could be anything from a performing arts group to we have a foundation that does a meditation event on occasion. And so they bring in a huge number of volunteers to help operate the venue seat people and those sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we ourselves don't have any in the district anyway. We don't have any volunteers.
Before our performers take the final bow on our series, please take a moment to hear from the people who make this program possible. I'm speaking with Darrell Teat, CEO of CORE. Welcome to our family of partners.
Thank you so much, Jeff. We are really excited to be part of the family and contribute to the work that you all are doing.
What is CORE all about?
CORE provides fractional and interim executive services, along with comprehensive back-office solutions that go into our client sites and do the work to give them the capacity they need in order to move through transitions, whether that's planned or unplanned. Or companies also work with our accounting and finance, back-office solutions, human resources, technology, and administration.
Why are these services such a lifesaver for small and mid-sized organizations?
Great question, Jeff. The reason why our back office solutions add value is because we save them time and money, anywhere from 20 to 30% of what they would spend on that back office solution. We work in it so they can actually work on it.
I have to believe that there's somebody right now listening and thinking, I could use that kind of help. What's the best way to get in touch with you, Darrell?
The best way is at our website, cxore.com, and contact me directly at dteat@cxore.com.
Darrell, thank you for your investment and commitment to supporting our messaging. And if you're interested in learning more about how CORE may help your organization, visit cxore.com.
Hello, this is Scott Thomas with Cap Trust in our Sacramento office. I specialize in working with local nonprofits and associations. Annually, we survey private and public nonprofit organizations across the country to better understand challenges they see in today's environment. In our more recent survey, we heard concerns about proper board governance, mission-aligned investment, and how to implement alternative investments. If you would like a copy of the survey or to discuss your organization, look me up, Scott Thomas at captrust.com.
At Western Health Advantage, healthcare isn't just a service. It's a shared value. As a nonprofit leader, you need a health plan that understands the importance of mission-driven work. Western Health Advantage is a local, not-for-profit health plan that supports organizations like yours with affordable, flexible coverage options for your team. But what truly sets them apart is their commitment to community, supporting nonprofits like the American Heart Association, Sacramento Ballet, and the Crocker Art Museum's Pay What You Wish Sundays. With access to top-tier providers and dedicated local support, Western Health Advantage is more than a health plan. It's a partner in your purpose. Explore your options today at westernhealth.com. Western Health Advantage, healthcare with heart, designed for those who give back. In terms of looking forward, as we were having that conversation a little earlier, obviously budget limits everything. If budget weren't an option, and SAFE said, look, we have a great idea in continuing support.
Oh, budget's not an option for me too.
That's right.
Let's
right.
go.
No,
Let's
this
go.
is all inclusive. And if the idea is right, here's what we would do. What would that look like? What would the idea be? What would you see? What would be different?
Yeah, I love this, the idea to paint a picture. I mean, there are still parts of the Performing Arts Center in particular that are not complete, and so as we look around, there was an idea for a community room, and I go, oh, wouldn't that be just an awesome, black box, small space to kind of meet the needs of things. And in general, we think about performing arts in these facilities, but, like the Memorial Auditorium, it is big, and its history tells us what its future could be, right? Even though things have changed around us, we can look back at that. I mean, what is a modern day circus now? Used to have a lot of elephants and other things, on that floor, and what could those kinds of experience really bring, or even exhibitions. We have experiences with that, and I think we're looking forward to adding to that realm of the arts and cultural sector. And here, I think there's an enormous amount of opportunity there, really activating the full breadth. I mean, the image that you have there with on the back side of the Performing Arts Center or in the plaza area has a stage. You know,
I didn't even know that.
And it's
that was actually in my head. I was like, oh, budget's not. I'm like, let's do the plaza. Like, what are we doing in the plaza?
Programming in the plaza and events and things like that. So across the district, I mean, we're really thinking creatively about, and as I said it before, what does the next generation of presenters and promoters really look like, and how do we help them? And some of them are doing that work now and have had a tough time working with us. And I think we've creating new programs to really make more possible for that group, just because of broader industry dynamics. And I think in general creates like, hey, what is I've heard, of 10-minute operas being produced in other places. Could those 10-minute operas be happening, at the Performing Arts Center or in the Runyon or on the plaza or things like that? And I think that, we have staff definitely to keep. That's the city's responsibility. We do that through our earned revenue and all of those other things. But outside of that, really, I think it would be amazing to see more large-scale exhibitions going on at the memorial and greater cross-creative projection type things going on in our buildings that just attract people to the city core and help them engage with all of the other businesses that rely on us. And I think that's the most important thing just moving forward in terms of vision, is recognizing that we are a significant asset for so many businesses and communities and people that rely on us. And so what we do really impacts so much more. And so there's a huge responsibility that comes with that to make sure that both the community feels reflected in the programs that are happening, because in reality, these are the people's buildings. So we need to make sure that they reflect, all of the people. And I think we do that, and we can do more of that. So it's quite exciting.
Yeah, I think from that perspective, for people to hear that and realize, oh, maybe I should get a little bit more engaged, because it is our community's facility. And what can we do differently? And what don't we know that we can do? We just don't know it yet, because we haven't exercised that thought process to see what's there. And if you haven't been there, you can't start. So I think that's a great way to look at it. Now, if we bring it back into reality today, where we are, what is the greatest need that you guys see?
Well, I think Megan touched on it. It's the need to look at how we develop the professionals of the future, whether it's a sound engineer or a stagehand or a carpenter or a concert promoter or a dancer. And there is a gap there that we do our best to support through those programs, supporting those training programs and making our facilities available for those types of activities. And, how do we usher new promoters through a process to help them? Because this industry is largely a trade. It's not like you go and you get a degree. You can get a degree in theater, but most of the people that I work with are people who I started out at a concession stand, as an example. So that's, building that future workforce. And, there's a gap, I think, partly because we're isolated. We're in our homes, on our computers, on the internet, playing games. I see young people who are not particularly interested in going to concerts, but they may be really super engaged if we involve them in the nuts and bolts of actually putting on a show. So I think that's a great need going forward.
You have a unique relationship with an entity in Safe Credit Union. How does that maybe play in? And where I'm going with this, Allison, is the ability that you've got through your constituents, your membership, to speak to them on behalf of, in cooperation with, or in collaboration with the elements that take place at the performing arts centers and or back of house stuff that you were talking about, but also front of house awareness. You have a great platform, which makes this really an interesting dynamic, because a lot of people don't have that wherewithal to get it out to, I don't know what the membership is.
About 220,000 members. Yeah.
Who else can get to 200 and some thousand people? with a message about what's happening at the theater.
Yeah.
And opportunities and engagement. How does that work amongst you?
Yeah, it's something that, especially when I joined SAFE a few years ago, it was kind of one of my first questions of like, well, what are we doing to support the Performing Arts Center, and what are we doing to support all the programming that's happening there? And they were kind of just starting to dip their toes into it, right? The center had just opened; it was open for about a year, and so I think in the last 3 years we've really done some pretty incredible expansion of that partnership and found some really, I think, important and creative ways to collaborate. We're really proud to be able to offer our members discounts, right, through a lot of the performing arts organizations that are kind of residents at the Performing Arts Center. Whether it's access to exclusive pre-sales or discounts on certain shows and events that are coming in. Safe Credit Union members get concession discounts, 10% discount if you use your debit or your credit card. So those are all ways that we can really tell a compelling story to our members about what this partnership means for them. And then in turn drive ticket sales and interest and exposure for some of the work that's happening there. We also have a really active community impact group at Safe Credit Union, and we have partnerships with other community-based and nonprofit organizations too. So trying to find some synergies and opportunities to partner in that space is really fun too, like the Big Brothers, Big Sisters, right? Like Boys and Girls Club partnership that we had relative to the ballet. So there's all kinds of ways that we can kind of find some mutual benefit and value and drive a lot of interest in the Performing Arts Center and value for our members, which is really fun.
Yeah. And I would just add to that, I think that the best partnerships really leverage everybody's strengths and assets. And so, I look at Safe Credit Union and I say, on the other side of my department, not the Convention and Performing Arts District, we're serving and funding creative people who have needs that really can go unmet by traditional banking.
Yep.
Take, for example, that performer in the Sacramento Philharmonic and Opera who needs a certain kind of instrument. And, what does it look like to have, musical instrument loans? I will tell you, I know that that's the first loan that they pay because that's the instrument that pays the bills.
Yeah.
But how do we think creatively about those kinds of opportunities that are out there to bring more strength to the arts and cultural sector, to the creative economy, to the partnership, to the community? I think that's a real opportunity before us.
I was even thinking, listening to you all talk about the workforce development needs for the industry. There are some very unique financial education needs for individuals that work in trades, for the creative, folks, for performers. The way that their income kind of ebbs and flows and comes in and goes away, and paying for insurance and kind of all of that is very different than what, traditional financial education would teach relative to budgeting and saving and that kind of stuff. So, we haven't had this conversation, but coming to the table and saying like, hey, let's develop some custom curriculum to support these populations so that if, I think a lot of times when you're looking at these trades, it's, is it going to provide the financial stability that I need to someday raise a family or to, someday buy a home or whatever it might be? And if you have the financial education to say, hey, yes, it can, right? And here's how, and this is how it's different, not worse. It's just different, right? And like, we can create some tools to help tell that story and make it more meaningful for people, right? And I love the idea of doing custom products and services to serve some of these pockets and populations, because that's like the other part of it is what we do, right? It's the product and service aspect. But as a credit union, like, we have the flexibility, and again, we are obligated and mission driven to serve in those ways, right?
That's another element on the activation checklist of how to engage the sponsorship.
Yes, that's right.
So, it's just a beautiful synergy in terms of who it benefits.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, very good. Well, we'll follow up on that.
That's right.
That's a news pod in the future of how it all worked out. How does one, we've got 3 two entities and three parties, I could get confused on I want to find out about XYZ here or XYZ there. Is there a uniform place? Is there one spot? Where does somebody go to learn about everything that's happening?
Probably the best resource is to go to our website, which is thesafedistrict.com. That branches out to anything that's happening at the Performing Arts Center, the Memorial Auditorium, the Gene Runyon, and then any public events that are happening at the Convention Center. And it's also a resource for people who may want to use our facilities or be an exhibitor in our facilities.
Beautiful.
So that's the kind of the one-stop shop.
Thesafedistrict.com.
Correct.
Okay. That conjures up a lot of different images too.
Yeah, right.
Which I like, in a positive way. Well, having a facility, or I should say facilities, where the primary sponsor is as visible, if not more so, than the theaters and the performances that take place is really something that's a wonderful testament to all of you involved, because that's unique and it's novel. And it does something different for our community, for our city, that we don't see every place. And I know it was a big deal when it happened. It's a bigger deal now that it's engaged. And it's here, and we're using it, and we're seeing it in all its glory to so many different ways and so many different uses. So for the novelty and what's the word I want to use? The thought process that went into SAFE's decision to do something this large on such a big scale, I applaud the credit union for doing that, and for you guys for bringing what you bring every day with your 135-ish people that make what Sacramento needs really visible and stand out in such a wonderful way. Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. We hope today's episode inspired you and gave you a deeper look into the work of our local nonprofits. If you believe in our mission to amplify their voices, please take a moment to leave us a positive review and share this episode with a friend. It helps more people discover the incredible work happening in our community. Don't miss future episodes. Subscribe to our weekly updates and monthly newsletter at nonprofpod.com. And if you're part of a nonprofit that would like to be featured, we'd love to hear from you. Just visit the guest tab on our website. The Nonprofit Podcast Network is recorded and produced at Hear Me Now Studio with generous support from our founding partners, CapTrust, fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations serving Sacramento, Roseville, and Folsom, and online at captrust.com. And Western Health Advantage, local care, community impact. Find the plan that fits at westernhealth.com. And to our newest partner, CORE, interim and fractional executive leadership, comprehensive back office support services. We work in it so you can work on it. Visit cxore.com.